Welcome to Duo Chat with Brittany
and Cynthia, where we talk about drama shows
like Dawson's Creek, One Tree Hill, and more.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brittany.
I'm Cynthia.
And today we're talking about season 1, episode 5, titled All That You Can't Leave Behind. Air date October 21st, 2003. And the synopsis is:
After the party, things still look bad for everyone. Peyton meets Whitey at the cemetery and exchanges grief and memories about her mother's death and his late wife, Camilla. With the benefit match between the Raven boys and the fathers coming up, Keith is to join Lucas, and with Karen asking him to reconsider to change his last name to hers after Dan barged in at Keith's shop saying Lucas is unworthy of the name. Dan's behavior on the court is no more sportsmanship-like, even at Nathan's expense. The Golden Boy's loyalty gets shocked in both senses of that verb.
So it starts with Peyton at the light, waiting for it to turn red.
Oh, that was green. Oh yeah, at the green light. Yep.
And it's just really weird how nobody is on the road.
Right.
It's like, does everybody go to bed at 5 o'clock?
Yeah.
Well, it then goes to Lucas. He has the whole Thud magazine stack. I have a question. How in the world did he get that? The whole stack? Did he go out and buy it? Or did he steal it?
I don't know.
I was just so confused because he has the whole stack. And I know because he was untying, when they come in the stacks.
Yeah.
And I was just like, why would you have all of them? Why wouldn't you just take one of them? I know he's only getting it so he can look at her work, but only take one.
Yeah. Yeah. Hillary had mentioned in the podcast that with that the whole scene of it all, her on the street, they had blocked it off so no one else would come into the street. But he was doing that. Otherwise it is very odd how it'll be empty like that. I guess it just depending on the time of the day that she was there, it was just no traffic at all. It was still pretty rare.
Well, they have to block it off to film the scene, but I'm just saying that they should have had some cars out.
Yeah, well, there was another car that pulled up behind her, trying to make her move, beeping the horn at her.
And my other thing is, it went from that to then her again with the car pulling up and go because it's green. Then it goes back to Lucas again, and Haley walks in. And she sees him, and then she walks out because apparently they're still in a fight.
Yeah.
And then Lucas runs after her, where she finally tells him the truth. What did you think when she finally told him the truth? Were you happy that it finally came out?
Yeah. I'm surprised she didn't mention that to him the night before or however long it was. He found out.
Right when he was saying it. Yeah. I'm like, how long has this been? Because I mean, the fact that, she didn't just come out and say it.
Right.
And the other thing is, when he brought her hat, she could have said, "You left me at the party."
Right. Yeah.
I was stuck in the bathroom and you left.
Yeah.
I had no ride home. He offered to take me home. I'm really surprised that she didn't say that.
Right.
Because I would have, you would have. But did you hear what she said?
About that she was doing it for him?
Well, because she brought up Nathan and because he was, he's going on about he doesn't like it, and he told her to stop. And then she said, well, then I would just be as bad as you think he is, which means she doesn't think that Nathan's bad.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, ooh. No, but seriously, about the light, when Peyton ends up going, right?
Yeah.
She just goes through every red light, and that's not really realistic
Right.
because one of the lights would be green.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Because
eventually, yeah.
when you go down that one road,
Mm-hmm.
you hit one red and then the next one's green and then the next one's red. They're all different for a reason because then you'd have a
Mm-hmm.
traffic jam.
Yeah.
So the fact that all the lights straight down the road are all red
Mm-hmm.
doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
Because again, they wouldn't be. Also, this is a small town. How long are these lights?
Mm-hmm.
I was like so thrown off by that because I'm like, why is it? Because Lucas and Haley, I mean, Lucas had looked at looked at the newspaper, I guess. Wasn't really a magazine though.
Right.
He looked through that, he talked to Haley, and then Peyton went. I'm like, that's a
Mm-hmm.
long time to sit at the light.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, and then Lucas finally sees Peyton what she's doing because nobody else is know what's going on with her.
No.
And then after the theme song, Nathan and Tim are playing basketball at Nathan's house, talking about Peyton, and Nathan's like, "Oh, we'll get back together because this is what usually happens."
Well, then Tim goes, why do you want to get back with her?
Mm-hmm.
And Nathan's like, because I told you we make up in the end. Like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
God.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why Nathan wants to be with her.
Yeah. He's only in it
Which,
for the sex.
but it's weird because he could date anyone else.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, you think she's the only one that will sleep with you?
I don't know. Maybe he's just comfortable with it and their
I have
routine.
another thing too.
Mm.
Um, Peyton doesn't seem like the girl that would date the popular guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Brooke would.
Right.
Why didn't they put Nathan and Brooke together? Do you know what I mean? Like when they do like movies and stuff, it's
Mm-hmm.
Brooke's personality and Nathan's. It's
Yeah.
not Peyton. Like she's the oddball. So it's weird that because I would think Brooke would probably be one of the most popular girls, not Peyton. Peyton's Brooke's friend.
Mm-hmm.
So why would Nathan go for Peyton? Do you know what I mean?
Well,
Especially if he doesn't care or know anything about her. It's not like Lucas where he likes her artwork.
mm-hmm.
Nathan knows nothing about her and he said her artwork sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And her music sucks. So my thing is why is he with her, not Brooke?
I think because maybe they're too similar. They
Well,
wouldn't really.
that must be what he wants because Peyton isn't that person.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if he only wants sex, well, wouldn't that be Brooke?
Yeah. I don't know. It's
Especially
hard
if
to tell.
that's all he wants because he really doesn't care
Mm-hmm.
about Peyton, not in the
Yeah.
way you should.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's hard to say when we don't know exactly how they got together in the first place. So,
I I don't think it's ever talked about how they get
mm,
together.
no.
But it's just throwing me off because again, their personality is Peyton's personality isn't the popular girl personality.
Mm-hmm.
So again, why is Nathan with her?
Right.
It seems like Peyton got popular because maybe she's friends with Brooke,
Mm-hmm.
but that's it.
Yeah.
Because again, Brooke is like cheer captain. She's over there
Mm-hmm.
telling Peyton stuff at practice, and it's just like, so why isn't he with her? Like, I just never really understood that, and it
Mm-hmm.
was never explained of why.
Yeah. And then at the cafe, a man walked up to Lucas and said he's looking forward to seeing him play in the father-son basketball game.
Because
And
apparently
that,
it's in the paper.
yeah.
Dan and his two sons.
hmm Yeah, there's a picture with Dan and Nathan, and then a smaller picture of Lucas that actually kind of looks like a mugshot. Really?
How did they get the picture of Lucas?
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Just like
Because
a random photo.
Nathan's is him on the basketball court with his dad.
hmm
So that's understandable. Because I'm sure he gets his picture taken after the games and stuff. And
Right.
Dan wants, those pictures. But for Lucas, it's just a random picture of Lucas. And I'm like, he's a teenager. So
hmm
where are they getting this picture?
Right. Yeah, because Karen wouldn't have given it them. So.
And neither would Keith. So I
hmm
don't get it. And also, um, it's not a school picture.
Right. Exactly. It says it looks like a mugshot.
So it just, you keep saying it's a mugshot.
It does. It's and like the lighting's bad. I don't know why. I mean, it makes
It's
sense.
so
So
bad.
I'm thinking Nathan or Dan must have found that, and that's why they did it because he doesn't. It's like not a great picture of him, so they
Dan
did it
wouldn't have
to.
done it. He don't want Lucas in the paper. Are you kidding me?
Well, I think he would do anything to, make Lucas mad or look bad.
But I just didn't, because again, he's underage.
hmm
It's not like the school could randomly give the newspaper a picture
hmm
because I feel like that'd be illegal.
Yeah.
Like the parent would have to, but like you said, Kieran isn't gonna and Keith isn't gonna. So
hmm
doesn't make any sense that his picture is in the paper. And why isn't that talked about?
I don't know.
I feel like that would be a discussion too.
hmm
Like, why is my son's picture in the paper?
Yeah.
And also Lucas, why wouldn't he say, why is my picture in the paper?
hmm
Like, I didn't authorize this, and neither did my mom.
Right. And I thought the title was funny how they put Great Scott play on their last name. Just reminded me of Doc from Back to the Future because they say that all the time.
Mm.
And then
Does this go to Dan and Deb?
well, I noticed how they put in the paper too. Who would have known that Dan Scott's basketball pedigree would be inherited by his two sons, Nathan Scott and Lucas. So they didn't put like Nathan and Lucas Scott. They put Nathan Scott and Lucas. So
And
kind of like,
also Lucas is older.
yeah. But I just made it seem like that they did that on purpose to like cut him out. Like like he doesn't have that name. So that's why I'm thinking maybe Dan did this.
Yeah, but then he said he was disgusted
Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like it'd be in character.
when the paper was brought up.
And Nathan was like, they're all one big happy family.
Oh my God. I'm sorry. But when Dan sees the paper, right?
hmm
And then Deb says something about your breakfast or whatever. He
Yeah.
said, I lost my appetite.
hmm
Oh my God. Like, this is what you created. What?
hmm
And then
Yeah.
Deb says, because Nathan goes, hey, I'll just go to school and eat with my brother.
Yeah.
But then Deb goes, you like basically you are the one that could make these two be nice to each other
Yeah.
and friends or whatever.
hmm
And it was just like Dan could not.
Right.
Does she know him at all?
I know.
She's the one, or he's the one that would keep them apart.
Yeah.
Oh my
Because even
God.
Dan said there's, no chance in hell, that would
Unless it
happen.
freezes over. Unless
Yeah.
hell freezes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But okay, my thing too is it's weird how Deb is really nice.
hmm
I just pictured a guy like Dan would have kind of his own personality wife
Right.
where she would be like, ugh, you fathered
hmm
someone else's child.
hmm
But instead, Deb isn't like that.
Right.
She's like telling Dan, like, this is your kid. Nathan, this is your brother. Like, I
hmm
it's just she's so sweet. And she went to go see Karen, not to be vicious. I'm
Yeah.
like, I I don't understand this because I just can't imagine Dan being with somebody as sweet as Deb. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Does it to you?
Mm-mm. Nope.
And why Deb would want to be with a jackass? You know, because she is so sweet.
Yeah. And then Nathan's still trying to make up with Peyton, but she says she's done with him. And then Brooke finds Lucas at his locker and mentions, she saw the article, but she doesn't think the picture did him justice. Far too much clothing, she said.
You barely could see the picture.
Yeah.
All I
It just
saw
like
was
a
his head.
headshot.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
well, all I saw was his head. So
Yeah.
I don't know what she's talking about.
Yeah. But it's sad to think that this is the only way she thinks, she can get a guy's attention. And then down the hall, Lucas sees Haley talking to Nathan and walks in with him to the tutoring center.
Okay. So Haley told Nathan the only way she was going to tutor him was like, definitely not at school.
Mm-hmm.
And here they're walking into the tutoring center. Do you think she did that now that Lucas knows?
Yeah.
Also my thing was, Lucas, here you go. She's telling the truth.
Yeah.
You're seeing them go into the tutoring center. Like Nathan is not the person that would just walk into the tutoring center.
Right.
So, because he doesn't want people to know, right? So it's like, I don't know, because he had that look on his face, but it was just kind of like, you should be happy that it's the truth. I don't get it. They're not going in the locker room. They're going into the tutoring center. Calm down, Lucas.
And then at practice, Whitey mentions the father-son game to Lucas and he's going to bring. Lucas doesn't really think he'll play. But Whitey says that that'd be worse if he doesn't play. And that he thought that he was done hiding from Dan. And Lucas says he is, but Whitey asks, wouldn't it be fun to dunk on Dan?
I love how Whitey is like against Dan and wants to kind of go at him at at every point he can get. I just think it's funny. I told you this is why the show is so good because it's like Dan is the villain of everyone.
Yeah.
It's not just one person. So,
Nope.
Because some people would be like, oh, well, he's just mean to Lucas. No, he's mean to everybody.
Yeah.
It's bad that he's mean to his own sons. And I'm saying sons.
Yeah.
Especially this episode. But it's just fun how the whole town kind of, he's wants to go after him.
Yeah. And then on the other side of the gym, the girls are having their cheerleading practice.
Why?
I know.
I don't get how they can practice together because you would think that the boys would be like watching them. Ooh.
Distracting.
Yeah, they're exercising. It's like,
and
again, they'd be in the guy's way.
Yeah.
Couldn't they practice in the hallway?
Right. And then, and then Peyton goes off on Brooke after she makes a comment about her movements. And it's in front of everybody because they're not the only ones there. It would have been a lot better if it was just the girls, but
yeah, but I
not.
think Nathan, Luke, and Lucas and Whitey all needed to see her reaction. Like her get upset and tell Brooke, cheer isn't the only thing. Like basically why are you so obsessed with it? It's, nothing.
Yeah.
But see, the thing is like they're in high school. So they're not thinking of the future.
Right.
They're not thinking of real life. They're happy. Like that should be your focus is cheer. So for the girls, that should be their main focus. I mean, obviously we know why Peyton, has that outburst, but it's kind of like the girls are supposed to,
Right.
just like the boys, they're supposed to, be obsessed with basketball. That's what you do in high school.
Yeah. I'm also surprised that Peyton didn't just quit cheerleading at this point since her and Nathan weren't together anymore, so at least she wouldn't have to see him.
Yeah, but she then wouldn't see her best friend Brooke.
Yeah, I know. I'm just thinking.
I mean, yes, would you want to cheer and see your ex? No.
And then Lucas goes to Keith's garage where he asks Keith, to play with him in the game. Keith says yes.
Oh my God. And then okay. Is this where he brings up wanting to change his last name?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Keith is against it.
Yeah, but this is only after Dan came in too.
Yeah, well, that was my thing because Lucas goes something about Nathan and Dan, and he just strolls on in with his bike, and I was like, first of all, Dan's riding a bike.
Yeah, that's
interesting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Secondly, I was just like, speak of the devil.
Yep.
I was just like, oh my God. And he just always pops in everywhere.
Yep.
Like he can't just leave anyone alone.
Mm-hmm. And then Dan told,
Oh my God. But
Keith.
did you hear him?
Mm-hmm.
Dan goes, hey, kid. I'm like,
Right.
you know how I feel about him saying things. And I'm just like, why?
Yeah, and
Why?
he also told Keith not to soil the Scott family name. And Keith told him that's an everyday advice for him.
Well, yeah, because Keith is like, well, I'm going to play in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because Dan said, oh, are you going to buy tickets to the charity or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, well, I would if I wasn't playing in it. And he's like, what?
Right.
But why would Dan think Lucas wouldn't invite Keith?
I don't know.
I mean, that's what threw me off was who else would Lucas pick?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't make any sense
Right.
that he wouldn't go to Dan or go to Keith.
Mm-hmm.
So Dan
Yeah.
should have known.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Lucas doesn't say he's gonna change his name until Dan tells him that he's not worthy of a name in the first place. And then Dan goes to see Whitey in his office.
Oh my God. That scene was funny
Mm-hmm.
because Dan brings up Keith
Yeah.
playing and because he's not even a father and stuff. And Whitey said, you're not the best father and you're playing.
Right.
I was like, oh my God, Whitey, it's so
Mm-hmm.
good.
Yeah. I like how Keith and Whitey are always the ones that are coming back at him.
Well,
Nathan too, but
he's the only one that they have like Dan only has scenes with them right now.
mm-hmm.
But it was just so fun. But why does Dan keep going to Whitey? I mean,
I don't know,
and then
because
you got to feel bad for Whitey because it's like
mm-hmm.
you're trying to be the coach to these kids, right? And trying to like
Mm-hmm.
have them look up to you and trying to teach them right from wrong. And then you've got Dan like always poking his little head in it. And it's like, go away.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't sign up for you.
Yeah.
Like the other parents don't bother me. That's why I said, I wonder if Whitey dreaded when Nathan was a freshman.
Right.
Like, God, now I have to have you around for 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Dan was like, saying that Lucas's playing would be, embarrassing for him being in the game. And what he asks, embarrassing for him or for, Dan himself.
Well, yeah. And he said, no matter how good you play or whatever, like, you know, you abandoning your kid basically is a lot worse.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to, like it's going to eat at you. And, you're the one that has to own up to it. But see, Dan doesn't care.
Right.
That's the thing is no matter what people say to him, he doesn't care
Mm-hmm.
that because in his eyes, he didn't leave Lucas
Right.
because he keeps saying Karen's son. It's like, well, there had to be somebody else to
Mm-hmm.
make Lucas.
Yep.
Yeah, it bothers me because I'm just like, but it doesn't see, but the thing is, it doesn't bother Dan. So no matter what people say, he just like, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Because he only hears what he wants to hear.
Yeah.
And he only ever hears himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's on the cafe's rooftop. Lucas is playing golf, and that's when Karen walks out and
Oh,
mentions
by the
that.
way, you can see she's pregnant.
Oh, I didn't see it at all. I
I
wasn't aware
also
she had
saw it.
kids during
I
this.
also saw the last episode. I just didn't
Mm,
say anything.
mm-hmm,
Well, because when they did the pilot, she wasn't pregnant. And
mm-hmm,
then, because it takes a couple months, right?
mm-hmm,
But then when they started filming the show, she was pregnant. So
mm-hmm.
it's nice that they didn't um let her go
Right.
because on shows they would have. They'd have been like,
Mm-hmm,
oh, you're pregnant. Well, the mom isn't supposed to be, so we're gonna let you go. It's nice that they kept her. They just hid her pregnancy.
mm-hmm.
Just not very well.
Right. Yeah, so Karen mentions that Keith told her about Lucas wanting to change his last name. And Lucas just doesn't want people to think that he's playing basketball because Dan did. He doesn't want his mom to see that stuff either, like the
Hmm.
articles.
But I don't really think Karen's reading the articles.
Right.
I think Lucas is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, is this where Lucas says to her, what, you don't want me to have your last name?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like she would be happy.
But my thing is, didn't her family possibly abandon her?
Yeah.
So maybe she doesn't want him to have her last name either because they're not, good influence.
Right. Yeah, so Karen says that when she found out she was pregnant, Dan had already had the basketball scholarship and nothing was going to get in the way of that. And then something strange happened. Right before class started, Dan changed his mind. He said he finished the semester and they get married. So when she went into labor and Lucas appeared, the nurse asked for his name, and that's when she went with Scott. And then she asked that Keith was there, and when the nurse brought Lucas in to let Keith hold him, she let Keith hold him. And that was the only time she saw Keith cry, and Dan never showed up. So that's why he ended up with the name. So now we finally get the story, the full story. Don't know why it took her this long to tell Lucas, because now he can understand more of how his mom was hurt by Dan's choices and how he ended up with the Scott name. So, um, I did forget that Dan just never showed up at the hospital after he was born.
It was weird to find out that Dan was going to marry her.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Also, I still don't care that, okay, because most women would have been
mm-hmm,
like, they would have been like, oh, you didn't show up at the hospital. Guess what? His name is going to be my last name now.
mm-hmm,
And I think if she would have given him her last name when he was born, I don't
mm-hmm.
think Keith would have said anything.
Right.
Like it's weird now after 16, 17 years to do it. But if
Mm-hmm.
he would have done it when he was a baby, Keith wouldn't have said anything. He would have understood.
Right.
But now that he's had it for all these years and Keith has been in his life, it's weird
Mm-hmm.
to do it now. But
Right.
again, I don't think Keith would have said anything.
Mm-hmm.
But again, most women would have been like, well, you don't deserve to for him to have your last name
Mm-hmm.
because you weren't there
Yeah.
and you did end up, choosing basketball and college and a new life. So, it was weird because I'm like, but because when she first said, I was like, okay, so you're gonna get married, so okay, that would be a reason to give him the last name. But then when she said, well, he didn't show up, I'm like, well, then that should have been the end of it. Because
Mm-hmm.
remember, we always wondered why, up to this point, why he had Scott as his last name.
Right.
But it still doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, you would have been mad that he didn't show up.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder too if maybe she's just not proud of her own last name too.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because again, if her own family left, well, then really, Lucas doesn't have a good last name chance, does he?
No. Yeah, and then Karen mentions that Keith is a Scott too, and that she's not ashamed of Lucas or his name. Then again, she never had to carry it, carry the name of the town. And that if he does want to change it, he has her blessing. But it's a name, just a name, and what he does with it is up to him.
Well, and I think too, it's also hard because there's Nathan.
Mm-hmm.
Like if Nathan didn't exist, I think it would have been easier for Lucas.
Yeah.
Because then it would have been like, well, there's obviously going to be drama, but Dan abandoned him.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that Dan still was there for one son,
Mm-hmm.
People might go, well, it might be Karen's fault. Do you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's harder given that Nathan's around and Nathan is Lucas's age
Mm-hmm.
because again, I think it just would have been easier and it would have looked better for them if
Mm-hmm.
Nathan wasn't around.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad that Karen approved of the name change and, didn't tell me he had to wait until he was like 18 or something. But
Well, I
yeah,
mean,
she has
she can tell it's kind of eating him
mm-hmm.
out. Like, because I don't think he sleeps at night.
Yeah, I just can see other parents being that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then she has a point, Scott is also Keith's name and he's been there for Lucas since day one.
I mean, I get that. And that's why I don't think necessarily he should change it now
Mm-hmm.
at his age. But that's
Mm-hmm.
why I said just changing it from the start and never giving him the last name Scott would have been better.
Right.
And I think it would have been better too if he would have had Roe
Mm-hmm.
and then he was 16 and said, I would like the name Scott.
Right.
I think it would have been better for him to choose that,
Mm-hmm.
not for it just to be kind of thrown at him. And then this is what you have to deal with.
Yeah.
I also think, too, if he would have had her last name, it wouldn't have been so bad in town
Mm-hmm.
because people, I don't think, would have put two and two together if they didn't know the whole Dan and Karen story.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
I think it would have been better.
Karen was just blindsided when Dan never showed up to the hospital and she had already given Lucas the name Scott by then, so I guess she just didn't see the point in changing it now, even though it was a
Well, they
perfect
ask
time.
you when the baby is born, what's his name? And
Mm-hmm.
the whole time, so when he was born, if Dan had not shown up at that point, you don't give him the last name. That's what I'm saying.
Well, she was just still waiting to see if he was going to show up, but he didn't.
I think she was just being annoying because you just don't do that to your poor baby,
She
especially Dan. Because she even said, well, he chose. So
mm-hmm.
don't give him the last name.
Yeah, like I said, she already did it before, because she did it after he was born. She thought Dan was going to show up any minute, but then he never did. So she just didn't bother to see if she changed her mind. So
So she was lazy about it.
yeah, so at school, Nathan finds Brooke and he asks if she's heard from Peyton. And she says not since they broke up and she went psycho on her at practice. Nathan mentioned she's not at school and she won't pick up her phone. And then
So
randomly,
so I
yeah.
like that Nathan is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that Brooke isn't.
Right. Yeah, and she randomly said that maybe she's out kicking the homeless. I didn't get what that was about, but
I don't either, but it's like if she's your best friend,
mm-hmm.
you would think that you would know something's off with her.
Right.
So you would try to talk to her.
Mm-hmm.
But Brooke's like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but yet Nathan, who hardly
Mm-hmm.
knows her,
Yeah.
is the one concerned.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you would have thought like because they're broken up, he wouldn't care,
Yeah.
but he does.
Yeah. And Sophia had mentioned this too about Brooke not knowing what was going on with Peyton in the podcast, saying like maybe characters are not supposed to notice or know things, to service the plot, which makes sense, but it's still a little annoying that, she wouldn't know. And then Peyton turns out to be at the cemetery trying to light a cigarette, and then that's when Whitey walks up and tells Peyton that there's a lot of smokers buried there.
Well, and about the whole not knowing
Mm-hmm.
this, like we as the viewers don't need to know. Like we can
Right.
see her acting this way, but Brooke should know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just weird. Do you know what I mean? They could have
Yeah.
set it up where Brooke understands and she's
Mm-hmm.
just letting her kind of be,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't know.
Right.
So it could have been that plot line too. Because then it looks like Brooke isn't a good friend.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it boils down to is your best friend isn't there for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, as in no one's there for you. So I don't like it because it makes Brooke seem bad.
Right. And then back about the smoking pain says that she's not a smoker. She just figured that since her and Nathan broke up, she's got room for a new habit. Oh, that was
Well,
funny.
well, it's funny because Whitey sees her, It was
Mm-hmm.
funny because she said, Peyton goes, "You making a reservation?"
Yeah.
He's like, hey, hey.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I love Whitey because he's just there for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he saw Peyton's outburst. Did he have to go ahead and see her at the, cemetery? No.
Mm-hmm.
He could have just let her be, but no, he's like, she doesn't really have anyone.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna just sit with her, which was just very nice.
Yeah. He didn't even bring up the fact that she was skipping school either.
But was she? I mean, maybe this was after school.
Yeah, maybe. It seemed like that was about the same time that Nathan was talking to Brooke about pain at school. Like it was the middle of the day or the morning or something. Yeah, and then Joy did bring up how Peyton talking to Whitey was a form of therapy for her, even though in real life, an adult football coach talking to a teenager is inappropriate. And Harry said that,
Yeah, but Whitey isn't like regular coaches.
right.
Because again, he gets in all their businesses.
Hmm. Yeah, and Harry said that Whitey talking about his wife kind of cuts out the creep factor and because he, misses her the same way that Peyton misses her mom.
Well, and he said, I'm here because my wife is here.
Hmm.
It's not like I'm here because you're here,
Right.
because that would have been stalkerish.
Hmm.
But he is only there because of his wife and he saw Peyton, so it's not creepy.
Yeah.
I
Just like
mean,
in
we can run into our teachers and stuff, around town. It would be
hmm.
creepy if they were following us. That would be the difference.
Right. It's just in under when when it comes to when it comes to the usual, circumstances.
Yeah, but again, like Dawson's Creek, they had was creepy teachers.
Hmm.
But the One Tree Hill doesn't.
Yeah, it's a nice refresher after all that.
I know, like you can actually see adults like that we can
Acting,
watch.
yeah, acting like adults that know how to behave and actually help the kids and be, a helping hand for them or
Yeah, and
like
be like
a
role
parent,
models
yeah,
and
parent
that they're
figure.
there for them. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like it's so refreshing because we didn't really see that on Dawson's Creek.
Hmm. Yeah, on one of the reels I posted, reel video, whatever, I put that if we had a nickel for every time an adult hit on a teenager on this show, we would have way more than two nickels for Dawson's Creek. So,
Yeah, every time there was an adult, boom, you knew
mhm,
they were going to hook up or want to hook up with somebody. It was like, can't they
yeah,
just be like there?
hmm,
Just like
yeah,
this. He's not hitting on her. Like nobody's right now is hitting on the kids. I like
yeah,
that.
hmm,
Well, think about it. This is episode 5.
right.
Episode 5 of Dawson's Creek, Pacey was
I
sleeping
see.
with his teacher. So it was like,
Yep,
what? Like
hmm,
totally different.
yep. Yeah, and then Whitey says that he knew Payne's mom and she used to lead the cheerleaders too.
Well, and I think that was the thing too, was he's not being creepy because he knew his or her mom.
Hmm.
So that was the other thing was he's invested with these kids because he knows their parents.
Right, yep,
It's not just a random teacher or
hmm,
coach. He
yeah,
knows these kids' families,
hmm,
and that's why he cares.
right. And then we learned that Whitey lost his wife about the same time that Peyton lost her mom. So it's about 7 years ago. So
Yeah,
about
because she
when,
said 7 years to this day. It's what she tells about Nathan.
yeah. So she was about 9. And then at Nathan's, Haley says he has improved just up to a D. And then they have another little grammar moment because he said that, um, him and Peyton broke up, or he says me and Peyton. So Haley corrected him to say Peyton and I, and Nathan asked if Peyton broke up with her too. And that was funny. And then
Yeah, but isn't
Nathan,
it weird that Nathan still cares about Peyton?
mm-hmm,
I don't
yeah,
know, just because like his character
mm-hmm,
being a jerk and an ass,
yeah,
he wouldn't care.
right,
Especially if he doesn't really know much about her, he wouldn't be the
mm-hmm,
one to care. So it doesn't really make any sense that he cares now. Like I'm glad he does because
mm-hmm,
I think him caring now after they broke up, it's
mm-hmm.
still like it's showing that he has a heart
Yeah, that's
and
someone,
he's not as evil, shall I say, as his father.
yeah, not someone, at least somebody is looking out for Peyton at the moment.
Yeah, because it's not Brooke.
Mm-hmm. Or her dad,
So
nowhere to be seen. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm just happy that because again, remember it was like, well, where does he go from here? Like he's
Mm-hmm.
just like his father. But it's
Yeah.
like in this episode, you can see that he's not like his father.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of like an act, like he has to be tough in front of his
Yeah.
father,
Mm-hmm.
but he actually has that dimension where he's not.
Right.
And it's good to see.
Yeah. He does think that Peyton is acting this way from the breakup, but later he learns that it's not. But he does tell Haley that he's worried about her. And then Haley points out that maybe he should have worried about her more when they were together.
But again, he's worrying now, which is okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, his person, like his type, would have just moved on to some other girl,
Yeah.
but he's not,
Mm-hmm.
which shows he's changing and he wants to.
Yeah, it's just like a little too late.
Yeah, but at least he's doing it now
Mm-hmm.
because then I like that they're showing that he can change.
Yeah. It's just
And
not
that
good
bad
for,
boy.
yeah, it's just not good when a boy actually cares about a girl who used to be his girlfriend now after the relationship's over, mainly because he wasn't caring.
Yeah, but it shows he could
Mm-hmm.
with the next one.
Mm-hmm. And then, Nathan tells Haley that she doesn't know the first thing about Peyton and I, and Haley corrects him again, saying to me and Peyton.
And he goes, whatever.
Mm-hmm. And then Peyton's at that green light again, and that's when Lucas comes out of his house. So was she only sticking to one road, or was it just, 'cause I didn't think that Lucas's house was even by the road that she was going down.
I
I was just
thought it was
wondering.
one road, probably the road
Yeah.
her mom died on, but
Yeah.
I I
I just
mean
didn't
if
think
they
Lucas would be right there.
well well they keep saying it's a small town.
Mm-hmm.
How many lights are there in this town?
Right.
I didn't think small towns have that many lights.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like this one does. Unless she
Right.
keeps going down the same one, which again, it was in front of Karen's cafe.
Mm-hmm.
So are they on the same street?
Have to be, I guess. Yeah. And then that's when Lucas gets in the car with Peyton.
Why? Is he
Because
nuts?
yeah, he cares about her and is not really
I
thinking
know, but is he
about,
trying to die?
yeah, no, he's just not
It's
thinking
like
about
when
that.
Pacey was in the car with Psycho. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
why?
Yeah. And he says he won't get out until she tells him what's going on. And sure enough, the light turns red and Payne takes off.
Go.
Mm-hmm.
I wish we could have seen his reaction of like, oh my God. Like, but we
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah, we did a little bit. He was like telling her to slow down, but she kept
No,
driving.
yeah. But as soon as he went, I wish we would have seen
Oh.
that of like his
Mm-hmm.
shock of like, oh, we're
Right,
going.
yeah.
I think
And then
that would have been fun.
yeah. And that's when Peyton starts telling Lucas of how her mom died. She was on her way to pick her up from school and just,
Yeah. And she said that she runs red lights all the time and nothing happens. And it's like,
right,
I don't really think that's the way to go. Like,
right.
I don't think you should just be running the red lights. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she just feels guilty like it's her fault.
Well, and you would think too that like okay, because she says she runs red lights all the time. You
Mm-hmm.
would think that you wouldn't run red lights if your mom died. Like if
Right.
that's the way she died.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like you would have some type of, I don't know.
Well, the guilt's eating her alive, so maybe she thinks that she doesn't deserve to live because her mom died trying to pick her up, in
I
her head
know,
at
but
least.
she's more obsessed with the red lights.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, then don't like yourself. Like I think, yeah, I think she's trying to figure out why. Like why was it her mom, but not her sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because again, she says she runs them all the time, but I'm like, but why would you? Like, if that's how your mom died, you wouldn't want to.
I think she's just in her head trying to make it even. And then when she does get to an intersection, a car did almost hit them. Payne turns away at the last second.
And isn't that where Lucas gets out?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I was happy
Mm-hmm.
that Lucas being in the car, it didn't get resolved right then and there.
Right.
Because on other shows, the show we just watched, it
Mm-hmm.
would have been like done deal, it was resolved.
Yeah.
But I liked that it like she kept going,
Mm-hmm.
like her down or her spiral, because that's kind of what you want to watch is it's not all, flowers and everything because the story continues. It didn't just stop.
Mm-hmm.
And given that this is her storyline for the episode, it'd have been like, all right, that's it.
Right.
And also, Lucas can't fix her. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the thing too, was I'm glad it didn't just get solved because Lucas is a teenage boy, you know?
Yeah.
He can't save everyone.
And then Dan goes to see Keith. Keith mentions Dan's, has visited in 2 times in 1 week, a new record. And then Dan brings up the father-son game, of course. And Dan, is trying to talk him out of it and
Well, yeah, because
gets
he's
out of
like,
it.
oh, I love how you're trying to be the father for
Mm-hmm.
the, you know, he says like Karen's son. And it's like, but what I did like was that Keith tells him, this was my name first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me
Because
too.
when Dan says, what does he say, Big Brother or something? And then
Mm-hmm.
Keith's like, yeah, that's right. I had the name first.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I love that. Like, I love that Keith is standing up for Lucas and himself.
Yeah.
Because with Dan, given his personality, you would think people would be afraid of him. And
Mm-hmm.
I think some people are, but Keith is like, you know what? Whatever. Like, I've dealt with you my whole life, and I'm just going to say it.
Yeah. I liked how Keith also told Dan that, he can be ashamed of him and Lucas, but what makes him think that they're not ashamed of him too?
I know. I was like clapping. I was like, good job, Keith.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's probably one of my favorite Keith moments.
Hmm. I know, just this whole interaction with Dan and Keith this episode, I'm like, I just love Keith.
Yeah. And then Peyton goes to visit Whitey, so she goes into the boys' locker room because his office is in there.
And all the boys are looking.
Yeah.
And she just goes straight for his office. And then Whitey's like, oh, you never know who you're gonna catch in the locker room.
Right.
And then Payne goes, or what you'll see.
Mm-hmm. And then at Nathan's, Haley asks if Nathan is still in denial of missing Peyton, and she tells him it's okay if he does miss her. And then he admits that he treated Peyton badly, and she had every right to walk away. He knows he screwed up and wishes he had another chance. But I do wonder how long him and Peyton were together, because how long did it take him to realize all this? You know?
I think a while.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he did say that they would break up and then get
Mm-hmm.
back together. So it's probably just been on and off for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Nathan mentions that him and Haley have talked more than he and Peyton ever did.
That's
And then
sad.
Haley corrects him again. Yeah, that's sad.
I will say, it would drive me crazy if somebody was trying to correct me. I'm just saying.
Yeah, she is a tutor, so it just
Well,
makes
I
sense.
know, but like Cynthia, you finally are expressing yourself
Mm-hmm.
and the person is correcting you. I'd be like, I'm
Yeah.
never talking to you again.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he's finally opening up. Shut up.
Mm-hmm. And then, Nathan mentions that he hopes he sees Haley at the game and that he knows this hasn't been easy for her and he thanks her for helping him.
So she's tutoring him a lot. I
Yeah.
mean, tutoring at the tutoring center and at his house. I mean, this is a
Mm-hmm.
lot.
Yeah.
I don't think she helps others as much as she's helping him.
Right. And then what their names together. Whitey and Peyton are walking
Petey.
on the bridge. Yeah. He mentions his wife wouldn't let him smoke in the house, so he would smoke there on the bridge.
Oh, did you know what I thought was funny?
Mm-hmm.
He said, I'd offer you one, but I know you're trying to cut down.
Right.
Hmm. But apparently Whitey stopped smoking after she died.
Right.
Which, I mean, I guess you could go both ways. You
Mm-hmm.
could stop if that person hated whether it was drinking or smoking or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
or you could continue and make it
Yeah.
worse.
Mm-hmm.
So I am glad he took the first option.
Mm-hmm. And then like Peyton's having regrets, maybe being a cheerleader or something, like not doing something she loves. And she asks Whitey if he, you know, wonders, you know, if he ever wonders about it, because he spent his whole life watching, boys play a game, and he says he likes to think that he was teaching them to play. But he does think about, the time that he didn't have with his wife because he was coaching somewhere, and he adds that that's like the closest that he's ever come to thinking it was a mistake.
Well, especially because Whitey is how old?
Right.
You would think that in his age, you would want to spend time because, like, that's like retirement age.
Mm-hmm.
You would want to spend time with your wife. And I could see, like, once she passes, then you'd want to coach because you want something to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. But he just must love the game. That's all.
Yeah.
In order to keep doing it
Mm-hmm.
at his age, I'm just saying.
Right.
But also now he's got nothing else
Mm-hmm.
because he doesn't have kids or his wife. So now is the perfect time to coach.
Right.
Oh, is this where we go to Keith and Lucas playing on the court?
Yeah, but right
Because that
before
was
that,
funny.
yeah, right before that, Whitey had told Peyton that he knows that her mom is proud of her and, told her to take care of herself. But you can tell that Peyton really needed to hear that about her mom being proud of her. Oh no, the next scene was Lucas joins Haley on the roof of the cafe.
Mm.
Yeah, so they're kind of having that conversation about, avoiding each other and how they don't want that anymore because they miss each other. And Haley just wants Lucas to support her in her tutoring, like she has with his basketball playing.
That's the thing. Lucas is like, when it comes to Haley, it's like he just wants her to just be the yes person and just all about himself and not
Mm-hmm.
about her.
Yeah.
Because he never really asks her questions. It's always about him.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, but when it comes to Peyton, it's about Peyton.
Right.
Like at some point, ask some questions, you know?
Yeah. So Haley did have a point about, that they should support each other like friends should.
Because again, it can't be one way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she's made the point, that the teams left him alone, the hazing stopped.
Yeah, so you would think he'd be happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So she just says she's just tutoring Nathan, nothing more. Yep. And then Keith and Lucas are on the river court.
Oh, this was funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Keith was struggling.
Oh yeah, but it was funny because like he goes, I think I pulled a kidney.
Yeah.
What? Oh my God, I never heard of that.
Mm-hmm. And
Playing
then he meant
basketball and I pulled a kidney.
right. And then he asked Lucas if he's made up his mind about changing his name or not. And Lucas says he has the forms, he just needs his mom to sign them.
I mean, I will say, again, given that Lucas is a teenager, it's been all these years that he's had the name,
Mm-hmm.
it would be hard for Keith to watch him change the name now
Right.
because, we have nieces and nephews
Mm-hmm.
that have our last name.
Mm-hmm.
It would be weird for them to be teenagers and be like, well, I'm changing my last name. And I'd be like, what?
Right.
Like you've had it all these years and it's my last name.
Yeah.
I don't know. It would just hit, especially because Keith is basically his father.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Is he, his biological father? No.
Mm-hmm.
But he's the replacement. And I feel like he's the best one to replace
Yeah.
Dan. I mean, why would,
Mm-hmm.
and also, I have another thing. Why is Lucas so like upset that Dan left him? I would be happy that Dan left me and I got Keith. Like, are
Right.
you kidding me? I'd be celebrating,
Mm-hmm.
especially after watching, especially in this episode, Lucas seeing how Dan is with Nathan on the court and in the locker room. You at that point would be like, have a change of heart, like Nathan's a different person. And also, I don't want Dan as my father. Like, you should be so grateful.
Right.
Like, why are you chasing after Dan or wanting to in your head when I would be happy he left me,
Mm-hmm.
even if Keith wasn't in the picture. I would just be happy my mom and I didn't have to deal with him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, Lucas, I don't get it. You have Keith. If anyone that should feel sorry for themselves, it should be Nathan. He
Yeah.
doesn't have Keith.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't even have him as an uncle because Keith says Nathan is just, what do you say about Nathan? Like, I don't know, because he doesn't really know him.
He said he's practically a stranger.
Yeah. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
anyone that should feel sorry for themselves, it should be Nathan, not Lucas.
Right. Yeah, so Keith just tells Lucas to think about it. Yeah, so it was sweet that Keith had said that Lucas and Karen are his family.
Well, yeah, because Lucas is like, well, I know it's hard for you because Dan is your brother and
Mm-hmm.
Nathan is your nephew,
Right.
sort of thing.
Yeah, but Lucas is still his family anyhow by blood, so it kind of makes sense, but I kind of don't that he said that. It was sweet either way, though.
Yeah, but Nathan, he doesn't really know Nathan, and Dan is an ass. So,
Mm-hmm.
and also my thing is, if Dan is so hung up on Keith being there for Karen and Lucas, he should have been a better brother back when they were growing up, because then maybe he would have had that 1% chance that Keith would have sided with Dan. Not that I don't think he would have, but I'm just saying you would, if you were nicer, you could have maybe pulled him in a little bit more and away from Karen. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like he wouldn't have spent all of his time with Karen and Lucas. He would have spent more time with Dan and Nathan. You know what I mean? If
Mm-hmm.
he was a better brother growing up.
Right.
Because I think that's why Keith, kind of distanced himself from Dan, was because he wasn't a good brother.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he then went to Karen and Lucas. So
Mm-hmm.
it all revolves the fact that, Dan did this to himself.
Right.
This whole thing.
Mm-hmm. And then Nathan and Deb talk, and it was funny how Nathan suspected that she brought a drink out that was poisoned by Dan for him. And then, Deb says that things are going to change around here, and if he doesn't
Yeah,
want to do the
right.
game, yeah, he doesn't have to, and Dan will get over it.
He would?
That's what Deb said.
I
Yeah,
feel
but
like
Nathan,
if Nathan quit or whatever, Dan would disown him.
right, yeah.
Well, he never asks, son, how are you doing today?
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah,
he never asks, how are your grades? Or anything like that. It's always basketball.
right.
So I think he would disown him. Oh
Mm-hmm.
my God, could you imagine a world where Nathan wasn't good at basketball?
I know. No, I can't.
Because I think you would have disowned him.
Mm-hmm. And then Lucas runs into Peyton on the bridge and he says he's been thinking about her and she's still kind of cold, so she tells him to try a cold shower and then says she's sorry. And then he asks how she's doing and she, recounts what happened. Breaking up with Nathan, her mom is sad, her dad is gone. We had a job.
Okay, so this is where we find out like her dad's working.
Yep, on a boat.
But it's just annoying because especially it's your wife's anniversary of her
Mm-hmm.
death. You should be there for your daughter. She
Right.
has no family.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
even if she had grandparents around, it still wouldn't equal her father being there
mm-hmm.
because you both lost someone that close to you. She needs her father.
Right.
So right now he's one of the worst fathers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she said that he's usually there in town, but this time he sent an email to her. Not even a phone call, just an email.
Exactly. He didn't even talk to her on the phone, poor girl.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you can kind of see too why she is who she is because her dad is never home.
Right.
And also, um, legally, is that acceptable that she's underage and she has no um
Supervision.
yeah, or
Guardian.
parental
Mm-hmm. No, I don't think
what
so.
happens when she goes if she has to go to the hospital?
I don't know.
Who's signing things or who someone has to be responsible for her.
Right. At this point, it should be Whitey, but
No, Whitey.
well, he's the one that's there for her, the only doubt. I was joking.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Oh my, I do wonder who is her parental guardian because
Right.
I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like, even in school, I feel like if it got work, like if it was out there that her father isn't there, he would get in some legal trouble because she would
Yeah.
go to foster care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like Whitey would know out of anybody. But he's not saying anything.
Well, no, he probably knows foster care would be the worst thing for her, but I just don't. I mean, maybe Peyton or maybe Brooke's mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Right.
Even though we don't know who they are,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they are her parental guardian if something happens. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I don't
Yeah.
know. Because she's the closest to Brooke.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Because I was going to say maybe Deb, but I don't know.
Right.
I mean, Deb would be a good one too. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not
Yes.
Dan.
Right. So Peyton's dad being gone just is adding to her pain already from her mom and missing her.
Well, that's the thing. The only person that could come in and save the day would be her dad.
Right.
Not Lucas, not Nathan, her father.
Mm-hmm. And then she brings up the article to Lucas and it says it makes it seem like they're one big happy family, exactly what Nathan said, which is funny. And then it was sweet of Lucas because he, sincerely said that he would gladly erase his dad to bring back her mom.
I would too.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you can tell too that her mom was the one that was there for her,
Mm-hmm.
not her dad,
Yeah.
clearly.
Mm-hmm. And then Deb talks to Dan about the game tomorrow. And then, Deb kind of figures out, like, finds out, like, exactly how important the game is to Dan. Because he says that, like, he regrets that it's gone and, that what his life was before. And,
Okay, so when she asks him is it because he kind of like basically says like those are the best days of my life
Mm-hmm.
in its own words.
Yeah.
Um, and she was like, well, what about Nathan? What about me?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, it was different. And I'm like,
Yeah.
um,
Mm-hmm.
so given that he said that,
Yeah.
why are you with him?
Yeah. And we're just missing the pieces of what Karen and Deb saw in him at the beginning of when they met him.
I
He's just
know.
probably
I
somebody else until he shows his true colors once they're too far in.
I know he must put on this happy little act or something because I don't see it because
Mm-hmm.
he just basically said his best days were behind him when he was playing basketball and that Nathan and Deb mean nothing. Like they don't
Mm-hmm.
mean that much as basketball did.
Yeah. Yeah. He only cares about the feeling basketball made him feel over everything else.
Hmm. I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm. And then Nathan shows up at Peyton's doorway because her door is always open.
Again, she is a child, let's say, because she
Mm-hmm.
is,
Yeah.
and she leaves her door open.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I get on Dawson's Creek, they did too, like Dawson always did, but his parents, one of them were always around.
Right. And it
Like
was
they
his
lived
second,
with him.
yeah, and it was his second story window. So unless he had the ladder there, no one could really get up there. So
No, but didn't Pacey go through the front door once because it was open?
yeah, and Eve too.
And remember at the end when Dawson said, you can come in, and, and Pacey said, remember, he said, oh, I forgot the door is always open
Mm-hmm.
or unlocked. And I'm like,
Yeah.
huh? But again,
Mm-hmm.
well, and here's the difference. Dawson lived on a creek. It was kind of
Mm-hmm.
probably hidden.
Yeah.
Like there was probably nobody really going down the road. Where
Mm-hmm.
Lucas, I feel like, lives somewhat on a main drive.
Right.
Well, clearly he kind of does if Peyton's going through red lights
Mm-hmm.
near where he lives. So they live two different areas. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just weird because I'm like, well, Lucas should and Peyton probably they probably should be locking their doors. I'm just saying.
Yeah. And then we get a little glimpse of how they used to be because Nathan says he's been thinking about how things were at the beginning, how they were at Wrightsville Beach or, the nights in her room. And he says they haven't been like that in a long time. And he says it could be again. And that he's been thinking about her and she's been thinking about him.
See, he's trying.
Hmm. But he's totally missing the point of how she's really feeling because it's nothing about him at
Yeah.
all. Hmm.
And again, you would think, especially if you're dating the person, you would think you would know important things in their life.
Hmm. Yeah, she says she's been having a lot of things going on lately, and he says he has to, and he brings about his
She
dad
like
in the
she
game.
kind of like rolls her eyes because again, it goes back to him in
Yep.
basketball.
Yeah, so she's tired of it.
Well, because it's always about him and his
Hmm.
problems and his dad, and he never asks, "How are you?"
Hmm. Yeah, so now both Scott brothers have been thinking about Peyton, and only one is really concerned about what's going on with her and actually being there for her. And it's only a matter of time until Nathan realizes it's not him.
Oh, so you think Lucas is the one?
Yeah. Well, seems to be that way, at least right now. And then Nathan mentions that she should go to the game, they can hang out afterwards.
Again, all about him in the game.
Yep. And she doesn't say anything, so he just leaves.
Because she's
And then
annoyed.
yep.
Oh,
And
did you see when he said, "What is that?" Because she was like painting the board black and she said
canvas, yep.
love or something.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
like,
that was funny.
okay.
Yeah. She's just like showing a reflection of how her heart feels these days.
Well, again, the person who had her heart from the beginning, which was her father, isn't
Hmm.
there for her on one of her darkest days of the year.
Hmm.
And he should be.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it would be irritating.
Yeah, so at the school, Nathan is walking with Tim and he sees Lucas. And then they're walking towards each other from opposite sides with Haley walking toward them in the middle. Nathan reaches Haley first. He shows her that his exam that he just got back has an 84 on it. She's happy for him. They hug, and Nathan makes sure that Lucas sees this.
You mean Nathan puts his arms out and she goes, oh, okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my God. And see, Nathan clocked Lucas before Haley even came up to him.
Mm-hmm.
So he was like, I'm gonna get back at you.
Yeah. So it kind of what were we talking about earlier? Um, just it seems like any sweet, genuine moment that they had before this moment, like it seemed like Nathan started to care about Haley until this point. So now we know that he's still using her to get back at Lucas, which is unfortunate. Unfortunate.
Well, I think when they're alone,
Mm-hmm.
Nathan doesn't think of Lucas. But
Yeah.
but because he clocked him,
Mm-hmm.
it was like, I know she's just my tutor, but I'm gonna make it look a lot worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
Because
just
I think he knows that Lucas isn't happy with it.
right.
And you can
It
tell
just
by the look on his face when they hugged, because Nathan was looking
mm-hmm.
right at him and Lucas is just like giving that look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just sad that because it did seem like Nathan was just genuinely caring about Haley and not just using her still. I
I
mean,
mean,
both can be true, but it's not
I
that.
don't like the scene because
Mm-hmm.
obviously he's only doing it for one reason. But
Yeah.
I do think when they're alone, I do think that he does care. Like when they have
Mm-hmm.
their one-on moment where he actually opens up, I do
Yeah.
think that's genuine.
Mm-hmm.
The scene, no.
Right. And then in the locker room, Keith walks in. Dan sees him. Another dad asks if Dan's going to carry the team. He says he is. Well, Carrie can carry his jock. Everyone
You mean
laughs.
Keith?
Yeah, I don't. Did I say Dan?
No, I think it's something about Carrie.
Yeah, Keith. He said that Keith can carry his jock since
No,
he's carrying the team.
I think you said it all together, so
Oh.
didn't sound like Keith. But then the one guy goes, he goes, Keith, I didn't know that you had a son playing.
Mm-hmm.
And he had the best comeback. He said, well, one of the boys doesn't have a father,
Right.
so I'm stepping in. And I was like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can tell Keith loves saying that in front of Dan.
Dan just like looks at him with an evil look. But like, again, he did it to himself.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a question though.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from the Scott family, what, I don't know, it's hard to imagine that a school could have a father-son game and all of the boys seem to have to probably participate. Because remember, Lucas didn't want to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's just hard to imagine because what if somebody doesn't have a father?
Right. Or father figure. Yeah.
Right, like Lucas had a father figure, so it was
Mm-hmm.
great. But what if
Yeah.
somebody doesn't?
Yeah, exactly.
So I would think that they wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, like Jake, we don't know anything about his parents, so maybe he doesn't
Where
have a
was
dad.
he
You
in
never
the
know.
game?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just thought of that because when I was watching, I'm like, but what about other kids? Like, what if what?
Mm-hmm.
Because some of them don't. So then they're just left out
Yeah.
on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And how they have it, father son game.
Right.
It's like, it's not, you know, a
Mm-hmm.
different name.
Yeah. Like kids, I know schools today have like father and daughter dances. I know they didn't have it at ours, but other schools I know. Like so that's kind of the same situation because not every
Yeah.
little girl will have a dad. So
Well, they even have like mommy and muffins day around
I never
Mother's
heard of that.
Day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Where, it's for moms. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, but what happens when a little kid doesn't have a mom?
Right.
I mean, and these are little kids. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's one thing to be, a
Teenagers.
high
Mm-hmm.
schooler and have
Yeah.
to deal with it. But then for a little kid
Mm-hmm.
to have to look and watch all these other moms with their
Mm-hmm.
kids,
Yeah.
it's hard.
Right.
And what if they don't have a grandma or something to
Mm-hmm.
step in and be the mom for
Right.
that day? You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's just
Mm-hmm.
hard. And
Yeah.
that's why I do think they should try to think of like, I get the other side of too of like, well, like father-daughter dances. It's not the fathers and daughters' fault that others don't
Mm-hmm.
have a father. And I get
Mhm.
that,
Yeah.
but maybe we should call it something else
Mhm.
where
Yeah.
they could like parent child, like I don't know, just something, or guardian, parent/guardian dance,
Right.
or
Mhm.
so that they could bring their mom or their sibling in case they
Mhm.
don't remember on Full House when Stephanie went to that mother-daughter sleepover for her
Mm.
bee
Yeah, yeah, I remember now.
bumblebee
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, Girl Scout,
And
yeah.
yeah, and Joey went, but
Mhm.
and he was trying so hard, but she just
Yeah.
kept looking at all the mothers.
Mhm.
And then DJ ended up filling in for her.
Yeah.
But it was just like, it's like that. They, what if their sibling wants to go and step in?
Mhm.
It's like they should
Yeah.
be able to.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm just saying, like, what if they don't have that's why these titles, it should be parent guardian. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
It sounds better instead of father son, father daughter,
Yeah.
mother and mother and
Mhm.
me. Like, I don't know. Like, I
Yeah.
get it for the parents that are there for the kids, but
Mhm.
but not every household has that.
Right.
So they should be a little more inclusive, and like they should think a little more of
Mhm.
the names at least.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's foster kids who feel like that all the time too.
Yeah, and again, those kids, they don't have really anyone to bring
Mhm.
to it.
Yeah.
So then what do you do?
Right.
I mean, I guess you can always keep the kid home on that day, but
Mhm.
it would be bad for them to not be a part of it.
Right. And then the next scene is the boys are warming up on the court, and Haley's in the bleachers calling out to Lucas, but he
And
doesn't
she's
respond.
like,
Yep.
Scott. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
they both look.
Yeah.
Okay. You know damn well she wasn't calling for Nathan.
Right. Yeah. And but yeah, so Haley still looks to Lucas, who doesn't give her any reaction to seeing her there for him. So he's still like avoiding her. And then the announcer begins the game and saying the winning team gets bragging rights. And then the announcer mentions Nathan and then Dan and has the audience clap for him. Everyone cheers, but not Whitey. And Dan rubs it in
Well, no,
Nathan's
did you see
face.
it? Whitey like eventually did, like very
Mm.
lightly. Like,
Oh, I didn't
I
notice that.
guess to make it look good, I'll clap for the ass.
Mm-hmm. And Dan rubs it in Nathan's face that he got a louder applause than he did. And then Nathan came back with, is he sure that his hearing aid isn't just turned up all the way?
It was really cute.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Because honestly, that is a father-son thing
Yeah.
where the father's like, hey, they like me better. And the kid is like, are you hearing this right? Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely a father-son thing.
Yeah. But then it goes overboard because the second the game starts, Dan
Yeah.
pushes the ball by pushing Nathan down after the referee threw it up. And then he distracts Nathan by pointing at nothing to make him look so Dan can make a basket.
Well, he has to do anything he can because he knows Nathan would win.
Mm-hmm.
So he
And
has to cheat.
he has no shame for pushing his own son like that.
Okay, well, you know what I thought was funny? It was during the game when the one kid was like messing around with the ball and stuff to try to like get his dad, throw his dad off.
Mm-hmm.
Then it goes to Nathan and Dan goes, "Don't you dare try that with me." And I'm like,
Right.
so then Nathan does anyway.
Yeah.
It was
That's the,
funny.
yeah.
Ball on his shirt, and
Yeah.
it was so funny because I was
Turns
like,
it
because he
around.
says,
Yeah.
because right away Dan goes, "Don't you mess," like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God. But I
Yeah. And
love that Nathan was like, I'm gonna do this anyway because it's
yeah.
fun.
Yeah. And then Whitey looked so proud.
Hmm.
And then I guess during the break between quarters of the game, the locker room for the dads or the side of the locker room, Dan tells the team that they all suck and it's embarrassing. He says for him, maybe.
Now, typically, the
Mm-hmm.
locker rooms are on two different sides.
Right.
So Dan would have to leave the one side in front of everybody to go to the other side.
Well, weren't they in the boys' locker room? They just like cut it off. So the sons are on one side and the dads are on the other side.
We are, but that's maybe, but that's a pretty big locker room then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I thought they were different locker rooms too, like the girls' locker room, but no, it's the same boys' one, it looks like. And then Dan said that Keith is playing house with a girl he got pregnant in high school and he's supposed to be embarrassed. And Keith says it's embarrassing because they're own men, so they're supposed to play bad. Dan says not for him.
So when Dan wanders over to the boys,
Mm-hmm.
as I'm rolling my eye, I mean, I thought he was gonna get like more aggressive, but I think he probably would have if Keith didn't step in.
Right.
But then he's like telling Nathan, what was that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you need to play your best game and all of this. And then Keith walks in and was like, leave him alone and stuff. And I was happy and basically walk away. And I was
Mm-hmm.
happy that he did all that. But and Lucas was watching this whole time. And it's like in that moment, you should put yourself into the category of, I'm so glad I'm not Nathan.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
Because all
Yeah.
this time he's been going, basically, I wish I was Nathan in the fact that I'd have a mom and a dad, but why would you want that, dude?
Right.
Like, you should be happy you're not Nathan because look at Nathan. He's being embarrassed in front of the whole team that
Mm-hmm.
he can't stand up to his father.
Right.
So you should be happy that you're not him. And oh my God, but then Keith turns to Nathan and was like, or he told Nathan, you're doing good. And then he told Lucas to was it to do your best or whatever.
I'm not sure I didn't write that part down.
It was just funny. But again,
Yeah.
I was just happy Keith was there.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked how he said those quick words to Nathan
Hmm.
since his dad was trying to bring him down. And then Peyton once again takes off when the light turns red. This time a car is coming from the direction, and almost hits her, but she stops in time before it does.
And then she starts crying.
Yeah. So it's coming
It's
from the
like,
other direction. Yeah.
well, I'm glad that was her stopping point.
Mm-hmm. Wake up
Like,
call.
I'm not
Mm-hmm.
gonna run red lights anymore.
Right.
Like, I
And,
get it now. You can die. I think that was her
mm-hmm.
whole thing was, how can someone die? Like, how could my mom die?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what she said. I do it all the time. Well,
Yeah.
clearly you almost did. So
Mm-hmm.
time to stop.
Yeah. And then ironically, I don't know what song it was, but the song that was playing during the scene when she was crying, the lyrics said that glad to be alive, even though Peyton really wasn't at the time.
Oh, I didn't listen to the song.
Yeah. Well, I had the captions on, so it was hard not to notice. Yeah, so Peyton is lucky that no one hit her after all these red lights
Yeah,
that
for
she went
real.
through. Hmm. And then, like, even if she did want to die, she shouldn't have been putting anyone's else's life at risk, like Lucas or a stranger. Yeah, so hopefully this was the wake-up call that she needed to stop doing this. And then back at the game, the team walks back in the court, but Haley is at the end of the line, following Lucas, asking if he's mad at her. And Lucas says he doesn't want to talk about it.
Oh, this is where he tells her nice bracelet.
Yep, because she's still wearing it. I don't know how many days it's been now, but she's
Well,
still wearing it.
clearly a while.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not like that night she took it off. Because
Right.
remember, she acted like, oh, this is nothing, but she's still wearing it.
Mm-hmm.
So it means something.
Yeah. Even though she told Lucas it was nothing.
Yeah, but if you're still wearing it,
Yeah.
it
I'm just
does.
saying she's trying to like convince herself and Lucas that's nothing. And then the announcer says they'll bring back the score to 0-0, and then that next basket wins. Nathan tells the team to give him the ball.
I didn't think that was fair because the boys were winning.
Right. Yeah. Me too.
Also, it's weird how they come back and all of a sudden they only have one more play.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, huh?
Right. Yeah.
Normally you come back and you have a whole nother half.
Right. Yeah. So I was confused too.
I was like,
And
then
then,
what was the point of going to the locker room for a break?
mm-hmm.
You
Yep.
could have just been on the sideline and got a drink, took a breath, and went back out there. It was just kind of
Yep.
weird. I was like, you went all to the locker room for what?
I know. Yeah.
I thought it was the half.
Mm-hmm. I guess it
Um,
was just so Dan could say something like usual.
yeah. So then he said, um, well, Dan
Well,
did his
yeah,
whole.
yeah. Dan body slammed into Nathan just as he was about to make the winning basket.
Yeah. And then he said, I couldn't give you the winning basket.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Yep. Everybody's looking at, Dan looks at Deb and Deb looks at him. Like, how could you just
Wait,
do it to our
Dan looks
son?
at Deb.
Well, because she was there and
I didn't think he looked at her though, because it just panned to everyone who's important in the crowd.
right. Yeah, that's what I saw. So I
And
put
so
it down.
I loved Deb's reaction. I loved
Mm-hmm.
Karen's reaction because I'm like, Karen, this
Yeah.
has nothing to do with Karen. This is
Right.
between Dan, Deb, and Nathan. But I
Mm-hmm.
love that she has that same reaction because, you know, I
She
just
knows
love it
it's
because
wrong. Yeah.
she's not in it, but she
Mm-hmm.
can see from afar that it ain't good.
Right.
And also she
Yeah.
can see, and I think too, like again, she should be sitting there like, I'm so glad he's not in my son's life.
Right. Yeah, because that could have been Lucas. Yeah, because he could have like dislocated Nathan's shoulder or something with that body slam.
So then of course, but then like the worst point though, Cynthia, is that
Hmm.
he walks away and doesn't help his son up.
Nope.
He says,
Luke.
he says, You okay?
Right.
And then he walks away, and then
Mm-hmm.
Lucas is the
Yep.
one that helps him up. And I'm like, what? And okay.
Mm-hmm.
And also, remember how Dan doesn't want Nathan and Lucas to be friends, right?
Right. He
You
just set
being
them up
an
to be. Yeah.
yeah, you being an ass to Nathan, not only are you an ass to Lucas, but you're being an ass to Nathan. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's only gonna draw those two closer
Yep.
because they will be able to sit there and talk about you.
Yep.
Because right there, Lucas feels bad, so he goes over to Nathan because he's
Mm-hmm.
humiliated and
Yeah.
helps him up.
Yeah.
It's like if you would have just helped your son up, then you wouldn't have had like that would not have happened.
Yeah. Because now he's fully seen like how,
How bad it
it's not
is.
just, yeah. Like Nathan isn't like his favorite son. He just treats both of them equally bad.
Yeah. And the only reason why basically he's around Nathan is because of basketball.
Mm-hmm.
But if he's not doing great, you mean nothing to me, sort of thing.
Right.
And so, yeah, like Lucas is seeing it, and I'm like, I am so happy that he's treating them like that. I mean, I'm not happy about that, but I'm just saying, like, because it's drawing them close together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Dan, doesn't want that. So it's just perfect. But
Yep.
also, okay, so when Lucas and Nathan have that little talk or whatever, Nathan says, um, I want to do this. Like, I want to
Mm-hmm.
beat him.
Yeah.
And because Lucas is like, I'll help you or whatever. But he's like, no, I want to do it on my own.
Right.
And so then so of course, doesn't Dan end up winning? I try to avoid him.
Yeah.
But
Only because Nathan let him. Yeah.
Nathan tells him, he said, You don't deserve my best. And then, that's where
Yeah.
he backs away, is like, take the shot. And
Yeah.
so, but the problem is then he does in front of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you get everybody's reaction, Karen, Deb, Whitey, everyone, of just like, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they all knew that Nathan should have got that basket.
Mm-hmm. Well, and again, as a parent, you let the child win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I think Nathan could have still beat him too if he was playing at it 100%.
Well, yeah, Dan isn't exactly young anymore, even though he thinks he is.
Mm-hmm. He's like, what, 30? Not that much older than us.
Hey, now.
I mean, still got some years, yeah.
What are you trying to say? We can have a freaking teenager? Ugh, Cynthia.
I mean, technically we could. Like if we had it, had a kid really young.
Damn.
And then in the locker room, Lucas tells Keith, good game. Keith says he was the worst one out there. And that includes the dad with the wooden leg. Wasn't sure if that was necessary to point out, but Lucas says to Keith that he knows it was never about basketball. And he, mentions what he did for Nathan in the locker room and he's proud to have him, as his dad for the night. And then Lucas says he's been thinking about what Keith told him about the Scott name and he thinks he's going to keep it and he hopes he can wear it as well as him.
And of course, Keith is happy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was a sweet moment. And then Nathan finds Peyton outside the school. She finally made it. Tells her that he's glad she came, even though she wasn't even inside to see the game. But he knew that she would, and he tells her things are going to be different between them. And that's when Peyton asks if Nathan even knows that her mom died tonight 7 years ago. And she points out that he didn't know because he never asked. And she says that she didn't show up for him tonight. And then he asks, why did she?
And then there's Lucas.
Yep. But then Peyton keeps walking, so she doesn't even acknowledge him either. So was she there for Lucas, or?
I don't think so. Because even in the locker room, I thought maybe she was going to talk to Lucas, but she head straight to Whitey. Like this episode, it was Peyton and Whitey.
Right.
So like
so maybe she went to go see him.
He's the one, right? Like he's the one that's been helping her.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and given how she doesn't even talk to Lucas or acknowledge that he's there, I don't know. I mean, how they made it, like how they shot it, it made it look like it was Lucas, but she didn't even say anything. She didn't even look at him, really. She just wandered or walked right past him.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like a nod or a look, like a thank you, like nothing. It was just, she walked right on by. I'm like, I don't know if he's the one she was there for or going to see.
Yeah. Yeah, so Dan's left alone in the gym. Lucas narrates a quote by John Steinbeck, and Payne is at the red light. Stops this time and then goes on the green light.
Oh, so you can see, like in this episode, like when they're at the game, Karen's cafe must be closed because Karen and Haley are at the game.
Right.
Which, I mean, they're the only two that really work there, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was just like, okay, so the cafe is finally closed. Because remember, before one of them were always there. Well, it was nice that she let Haley have the night off to go to the game to see Lucas.
Right, yeah.
So what were your highs and lows?
Well, I don't know. I did like how Peyton at the end, at least that got resolved. The episode ended how I think it should have, with how she got through the guilt and the pain that she's had from her mom's accident, and now doesn't want to put herself in or anyone else in that danger anymore. And then the lows is just the game with Dan, what he did to Nathan. And yours?
Well, I mean, for Peyton, I was happy that she kind of got through this by herself in a way. Like she's not relying on others to save her.
Right.
Like she can get, it's kind of like when you think about it, if you get through your hardest days by yourself, you can then get through anything. And so I was happy that she was able to get through it without everyone kind of like consoling her and you know what I mean? What you would think that they would do.
Yeah.
So I was happy that way because then, because she can stand up for herself then. But okay, so like for me, my high, what I liked the moments with Whitey and Peyton though.
Yeah, those were good.
But one of my favorite moments was Keith standing up to Dan to protect Nathan. I like that.
Yeah.
The worst was Dan the whole time.
Yeah, I agree.
Just Dan in general, just the whole episode. Because every scene he's in, it's like, oh my God.
And then for the best, I put Keith because he was, helping out Lucas with the game and then even being there for Nathan after Dan said all that to him in the locker room.
So that was my thing too, was Keith was there for Lucas, there for Nathan. I mean, Whitey was there for Peyton, But I just love the stand. I just loved when he stood up to Dan. I loved it.
Yeah.
To protect Nathan. I just love that part.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, he's not close to Nathan, but he's still doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for me, the best was Keith, and then the worst, Dan. I mean, nobody could outbeat him in that category.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny. I was like going into this, I was like, I think we're both gonna have the same worst.
Yeah.
I mean, the best could be different, but the worst, no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Dan's probably gonna win by the end of the series.
Yeah, it's gonna be for everyone. It's gonna be the worst. Well, I think we all can say it's Dan.
Mm-hmm. And then rating?
So I actually like this episode.
Me too.
I think we learned some things. We learned that Peyton's dad works out of town a lot. We learned her mom died 7 years ago, and we learned how she died.
Yep.
So we got a little backstory on her. We, we continue to learn that Dan's an ass,
Yeah.
and he's only getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
We just learned some things in this episode, which I like to find. In every episode, you like to find things out, right?
Right, yeah.
And so for me, it was very entertaining, especially the game itself was interesting. And also, you have to think too, I am sure that the actors loved filming that
Mm-hmm.
because they just get to be on the court having fun with each other.
Yeah.
Whether they're sitting there, being cocky with each other, not like that's fun.
Right, yeah.
So I think that would be fun to do. So for me, I'm giving it an 8 because I really liked it.
Yeah. I say an 8 too.
Yeah. And then, what's the next episode?
Episode 6, Every Night is Another Story.
It's about nighttime.
Yeah, it has to be, yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Yep, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of Duo Chat. If you want to chime in with your opinion about the episode and the show we discussed, you can email us at duochatpodcast@gmail.com. And to keep up with updates about the podcast, you can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and subscribe to our channel on YouTube at Duo Chat Podcast. And give us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. We would appreciate it.